Okay, without further ado, Eva, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So as Edward introduced, today I will dive a little bit deeper into all the mysteries, let's say, of work design, what it is, how you can design sustainable work, and what are the positive impacts, let's say, of really designing motivational and sustainable work. So, let's say for most of my career, I've been really fascinated by this topic. And let's say one simple question is why do some jobs energize while other jobs drain them? And I think personally for me, that question became very tangible when I started as a prevention advisor more than a decade ago. And in that role, as some of you might know, the focus as a prevention advisor is on stress, is on burnout, is on mediating, reintegration also, supporting people once they have dropped out. And even then, already, I asked myself or found myself asking, let's say, a different question is like, if we are serious about prevention, shouldn't we also spend as much time thinking about what creates these problems or these outcomes in the first place? And I think honestly, the question feels even more relevant today than ever, because over the past few months, we've seen intense discussions around mental well-being, long-term absence, reintegration. And I think it's absolutely important that we support people in returning to work. But for me, if the conversation, let's say, stays there, um, personally, I fear that we risk focusing mainly on the individual or the consequences rather than the causes. And that gets a lot less attention. These questions, or the work design itself, gets a lot less questions than, let's say, the outcomes. So for me, if we look at work design, it's really about how can we create work that is at the same time workable, but at the same time also motivational. So that's where the source of the heart of work design is. So me, for those who don't know me yet, I'm Eva de Winter. So I'm a psychologist, working an organizational psychologist. And as Edward introduced, I'm the founder of Rewire, where we help organizations, leaders, and individuals rethink work itself. So not from, let's say, an efficiency perspective, but most importantly from a well-being and sustainable performance perspective. And let's say the major things we stand for is our mission is making work work. We have some values also in the way we approach that advice and consulting. So we work evidence-based. We really aim for sustainable results, tailor-made solutions, and designing work with people in mind. And in the end, also said it in my introduction, is I think we also can have an impact not only on the individual organization, but also on a society level if we design work as it should. All right, so work design, what is work design? And when I tell people I'm specialized in work design, I often get puzzled looks because most of you might know organization design. People know what that means, but work design, that term I think is less familiar. And yet, work design has been studied for decades and is strongly grounded in work and organizational psychology and job design research because let's say it lies really at the heart of how work affects motivation, well-being, and performance. And one of the leading researchers in work design is Sharon Parker. And I must admit, Sharon Parker, personally for me, is, let's say, my professional hero because she studied work design for several years already. And she's also the one who clearly defined what work design is. So here you see the definition. It's already more than 10 years ago. So, and it's a definition that is really used broadly and let's say internationally. So work design, it refers to the content, the organization of work, tasks, activities, roles, and relationships that individuals do at work. So the content, it's really about what you do. It's your tasks, it's about your responsibilities, and I think the easiest way to explain it is it's your job description. Then we have the organization of work, and that's more about how those tasks, activities have been structured within the organization. So, how do we, let's say, combine different tasks to or into a meaningful job, into a meaningful role? What decision autonomy can we give to people? How much variety can people have? So that's the organization part, and then we have the relational parts. And the relational part is more about let's say, do people in their job have meaningful interactions with co-workers, with your manager, but also with your clients, patients, etc. So that is the relational part. So there's three major components, let's say, in work design. It's the content, it's the organization of work, and the relationships you have. And as I said, there is more than a decade of scientific research on job design. It already started in the early 1900s. And one of the, let's say, more impactful researches that have been done is, again, a study by Parker, but also together with some other researchers. And what they did is they looked into the research from the past 100 years to look at, okay, work design, what are the interesting outcomes of work design? And what they've seen is they clustered it into three major outcomes. So mental health, and mental health is everything that has to do with, let's say, depression, anxiety, burnout, motivation and performance. So that's more linked to job satisfaction, creativity, but your task performance as well. And then learning and growth. So it's about if we design, let's say, meaningful jobs, developmental jobs, well, then people can use their talents and develop their skills. So those three are the major outcomes of good work design. And for those who might dive even deeper into the details, it's just to share it with you, is that even there, they looked into all the different details of work design and what the possible outcomes can be on those behavioral outcomes, role perceptions, well-being, and attitudinal. And here you can see, like, okay, there are really significant correlations. There are correlations and no causation. So what we see here is that there is really a big impact on all those different work characteristics because work design is about work characteristics. They have a meaningful and significant correlation with, for example, attitudinal outcomes, but also with well-being outcomes. All right. But even, let's say, with all this body of knowledge, unfortunately, that's at least what I found. Unfortunately, when well-being or performance issues arise or it comes under pressure, we still have the reflex to intervene primarily and at the individual level. So, for example, when stress symptoms arise, what we do is we offer an increase your resilience training, or when people have, let's say, low performance, underperform, we might send them to a training on time management, for example. Or even absenteeism. What we do is we follow up on people when they get sick. We make different phone calls, and then we do our best to reintegrate as soon as possible. And maybe we also offer, let's say, an employee assistance program to help people. Or, for example, when people are tired, exhausted, what we do is we help them with relaxation exercises. And to be clear, I think many of these interventions can be absolutely valuable. but they largely intervene downstream. What they do is they help people deal with the consequences of, let's say, bad work design. While I think at least part of the issue may sit also upstream. We also need to think about the soil. Where do people work, the environment where people work, how the work is designed, to really tackle, let's say, all the issues that you see in the first place, the stress, performance issues, absenteeism issues, or maybe people who are exhausted. So I think that's really what I want to share with you today is look further. Don't just look at the symptoms. We also need to look a little bit further to the soil, into the work design. Okay, a lot of, I think, arguments to explain to you why work design is important. But okay, how does it work? What exactly is work design, let's say? What are, let's say, underpinning components of work design? And that is what I would like to share with you also today, is it will give you some, let's say, concrete helpful tools to look at work in a different way. And I think what we've seen is that work or work design, as I said, or work consists of different work characteristics. And it is when we look at work, often we can make a division between, let's say, resources in our work and demands in our work. And every job has those resources, every job has those demands. Resources is more about, let's say, for example, getting support from our colleagues, having some kind of autonomy in how we plan our day, also about good leadership quality. So those are the things that, let's say, energize us, that motivate us. And at the same time, we have also demands in our job. Demands are those elements in our job that, let's say, can get us exhausted. So it might be possible conflicts, role conflicts. Let's say that's when you get different instructions from one person to another. Bureaucracy is also a major demand, time pressure. So if we look into work, we can cluster them into, let's say, two major topics. It's resources and demands. And one of the models that underpins this two structures is the job demands resources model. As you see, the reference is at the bottom. So it's developed by Eva de Meruti, Arnold Bakker. And what they developed is they say, okay, in our job, in our work, we have those different demands and resources, and they create a different process. So depending on how many demands and how many resources you have, they have a different process. And the first one is a motivational process. So the job resources, as I said, autonomy, for example, having variety in your job, it can create, it's stimulating. People get motivated by the resources they have in their job. There's also the personal parts. So that's more in the or at the individual level. It's about, let's say, how do you believe in yourself? It's about the self-efficacy. It's about hope. It's about resilience as well. And those two come into play when we look into work engagement. So the first process, as I said, is a motivational process. And that process brings also performance. So the more motivated, not just the more, but the more quality of motivation we see into people, the better they perform. So that's the first process. And then we have another process that's created by the job demands. So the job demands, as I said, it's about bureaucracy, possible conflicts that you have in your job that creates an exhausting or an energy depleting process that creates burnout or exhaustion. And what I personally appreciate about this model, it really captures well all of the different, let's say, processes that can come into play and that can translate, let's say, how you need to design work, and it's important to look at the motivation part, but also the exhaustion part. So I think that's interesting. At the same time, what it does, it also explains, for example, that certain job demands are not always negative, because we might think that every job demand creates exhaustion. That's not the case. We have certain challenging demands, for example, that can create also motivation. When we think about complexity or even sometimes time pressure, can also have a positive impact on our work engagement. So it's not only negative, the job demands. So that is the dotted line that you see towards motivation. And then what we see is the job resources. There's a dotted line to the exhaustion process, because job resources, they buffer the impact of the negative job demands on burnout. So that's what I say. It's like an overarching model that can help you explain, translate how everything comes into play and the interplay between the job resources and job demands. But at the same time, there is some criticism also on this model, is that it is maybe way too complex, in the sense that it's too overarching, and it doesn't give you the right tools, maybe. It doesn't give you the right intervention path to work on job design. So that's why personally I work with another model that really translates the job demands resources model into something more workable, and that's a smart work design model. And I think that is really where I want to go into detail with you, and give you also some examples afterwards, is how you can, based on this model, create work that is, as I said, it doesn't deplete your energy, and at the same time it motivates. So those two processes here are very important, because it's not because you're not exhausted or you don't have stress that you're motivated. So I think we need to look into both pathways. It's also making work workable, but at the same time getting people motivated, or helping people to be motivated. So the smart work design, they what they did is they looked into, again, all the different research that has been done on work design, and there, as I said, so many different work characteristics that have been studied, but I think it's important to know what are the most important ones. If we look into motivation, if we look into stress, what are the most important ones? And what they did is they clustered it into 5 categories. So SMART, it's not about that SMART goals. It's something different. SMART stands for stimulating, mastery, autonomy, relational, and tolerable demands. So what those researchers looked into, they said, okay, if we look into all those different work characteristics, the most important ones for the outcomes that I've presented, well-being, behavioral outcomes, performance, etc., it's work needs to be stimulating. People need to have mastery in their job. They have to have some kind of autonomy. There have to be relational aspects in the job, but also work needs to be tolerable. Tolerable, especially for the more hindering demands. Okay, so let's dive into the different letters. So stimulating. Stimulating is about having some challenge in your job. Remember, I explained to you, like, if we look into the job demands resources model, we have demands, but some demands can be challenging. And some of them you see here, problem solving, for example, it can be at the same time a demand, because if you have complexity in your job, cognitive complexity, well, it is some kind of demand. It can have some impact on your energy, but at the same time, when people perceive it as a challenge, but it can be stimulating. So that's what you see here. So stimulating work is about having enough variety in your job. It's about getting to use, or possibility to use, different skills, developing your skills as well. And as I said, problem solving. So having some kind of complexity, cognitive complexity in your job. So that's the first one, stimulating work. The second one is about mastery or mastery. Mastery is about feedback. So if you have the opportunity to get feedback from your coworkers, from your manager, from the work itself, also the work itself, then you get to get better in your job. You master your job even more. So that's an important one. Feedback from the work, for example, a concrete example from something I I get is, for example, what I do is I experiment sometimes with HTML codes for my website. And what happens is if I put in the wrong code, well, I immediately notice whether it functions or not. So that's feedback from the work itself. So you immediately get feedback from what you do. Also, for example, a client that is not happy with your interaction, well, that's feedback from the work itself. So that's important to look into as well, because feedback, we often think about the relational parts with your coworkers and manager. No, it's also from the work itself. Role clarity, let's say a very important one, because in the work I do, I often see this one as popping up as an issue, because sometimes it's not clear what is expected from you. What is in or within my job, what is not within my job, what can I expect from other co-workers, etc. So that role clarity is a very important one. And task identity. Task identity is about, do you get the opportunity to finish a task as a whole? So it's more like end-to-end responsibility. And all of these, they help you to get better in your job, to master your job. So that's the second one. Autonomy. We don't just use, or Parker and I, let's say the smart design, doesn't just use the autonomy, let's say in one form. They split into three forms of autonomy. So they look into autonomy as a part of when and where can I do my job? Do I have the autonomy to decide on how I do my planning, for example? But also do have autonomy in how decisions are made. Can I have an impact, for example? Can I participate in decision making? But also how you do your job. It's more about the methods you use to execute your job. Then relational parts. Relational part is about social support. Again, from coworkers, from your manager. It's about task significance. That is more about the impact you see of your job. Like if, for example, you're a nurse, your task significance is high because you immediately see the impact of what you do for your patients. Beneficiary contact might seem a little bit strange, but in some jobs it's not always possible. It's about the possibility you have with the people who can benefit from what you do. So do you have like a direct contact with, for example, clients? You have a direct contact with patients, with the people who benefit from your work. That is the relational part. Okay. And then the last part is tolerable demands. Tolerable demands, as I said, it's a mix between the challenges, but also the more hindering demands. So it's time pressure, it's workloads, it's emotional demands. Sometimes they also integrate more the bureaucracy part. So those are the demands. They can be present, of course, in your job. That's more like the prevention part. Like, okay, we can have some, let's say, extent of demands. Of course, every job has certain demands, but they need to be tolerable. They need to be workable to be able to be motivated and stay healthy. Okay, so now we have a clear overview of the different components of what is good work design. There are different roads to create it, work design. And I think the easiest distinction to make is you have some top-down redesign you can do, and there are also some bottom-up redesign you can do. And I will dive into detail now. I will give you some examples of, for example, the top-down redesign interventions I did or we did with Rewire, and then also bottom-up redesign. What are the possibilities there? As you can see, so top-down is more about, let's say, a more formal process. It's more a change process, organization development process. And often it is decided from leaders. Is about how will we create certain jobs, how we will divide decision autonomy, for example. So that's more decided on let's say by leadership. And then we have the bottom-up redesign, and that's all the different actions people take to redesign their job themselves. Okay, the first one. Top-down redesign. So top-down work redesign or design focuses more on improving the quality of work. I think that is also something important about work design is we do not look into the efficiency part, we look more into the motivational part of jobs. So top-down work design focuses on improving the quality of work through what? Structural changes in the job and also the underlying work characteristics. Okay, I will give you an example. I think that will illustrate it even better what it means. So it's a project we recently finished, or we're still like doing more an implementation part. But I think the organization development part, the work design part is finished, and it is within a semi-public organization. And so the board of directors came to us. They wanted to, let's say, strengthen their people and organizational foundation. And one of the challenges in the environment is that their governance structure might change every 4 years. So that is, I think, a challenge that they really needed to take into account. That's what they also said. So they elect their board members, and at the same time, they didn't want one person acting as a general director because they had some bad experience in the past. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to, let's say, structure their leadership also in a different way. Let's say in a more sustainable way, not just within one person, but more shared, and then again also taking into account the fact that leadership might change every 4 years. And what we did is, or they at least were looking into a structure, work design structure that creates continuity, more stability, but at the same time growth opportunities, sustainable performance for their people. So it was not just from a, let's say, a perspective of organization redesign, but also from a motivational part for their people. And we needed to take into account as well the legal governance framework, because, for example, in this institution, is that certain tasks needed to be done by the board of directors. So there is that legal framework that we needed to take into account as well. So what did we do? The first thing we do, we worked with the executive committee around what is our mission and what is also our ambition, because it was a new board of directors. I think it might be interesting to do it as well with an existing board, but here it was a new board. So that's why we really needed to be aligned with the new board on that mission, ambition, and strategy. And from there, we looked into how we or they wanted to structure their leadership. And as I said in the introduction of the case, is that they wanted a more shared leadership. So they wanted some parts of the leadership centralized within the board of directors, but they wanted some parts of the leadership more shared, because before it was within, as I said again, also it was within one person. So certain tasks they wanted to get within the board of directors, and other tasks they wanted to get more into the jobs of people. So I think that was an important question to tackle is, okay, if we want leadership to be shared, okay, what does that mean? So we looked into the different activities that needed to be done. We looked into all the activities that first of all, also needed to be legally done by the board of directors. And then we looked into also the activities that the people are currently doing. And we got them all together. And based on those different activities, we made clusters. Like, okay, what do we think needs to be done together? Like, for example, there were some more HR admin tasks. It was done before by one person, and they really wanted to look into those activities and maybe give it to someone else within the existing structure of the people. So we made logical clusters of activities. HR was one of them. Finance, for example, was one of them. So we clustered them all together. And then what we did is we redistributed. Some tasks, of course, people had their jobs, so we didn't, let's say, make a major change to the current jobs. But what we did is we looked into all, especially the other tasks that needed to be distributed. We created some roles based on those clusters of activities. Like, okay, are there some roles that people can take on top of their current job? That it is something voluntary, yes, also people do not have to take on that role. And at the same time, what we did, because I said they also wanted to create some learning perspective within the jobs. What we did is, for example, we defined, let's say, the job, the basic job, and then we created like plus and plus plus. So for people who are interested in learning more, getting more task variety, getting more, let's say, variety of skills. So what we did is we created a path within the job to grow. So that is, for example, one thing we did here is, as you see, it's creating more workable work. It's creating more motivational work. And based on the feedback that we got from the people, because we already did, let's say, a feedback moment with them. And I think they were very pleased to know that now there is more like a path to grow and take on different roles, because before that wasn't the case. It's a small organization, and now they have the possibility, also because, and that's an important one, also because the board of directors decided that they wanted to share certain leadership tasks with the people. Well, so that's one example. But as you might see, okay, that's quite some work, in the sense that, okay, it's more like an organization development track. It doesn't always have to be that kind of change or that kind of implementation. Another example, for example, is within a school, and what we did here is, for example, one of the things that we noticed is there was a lot. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit too fast. So this is just the feedback again on the first example. Yeah. So what we did here, I wanted to make the link with the smart work design. So what we've done here is you see the different aspects. You see the stimulating work, the autonomy, the master relational, all the different work characteristics that we worked on for the first example in the semi-public organization. So people have more skill variety, more tasks variety, more decision autonomy, role clarity, and task significance. So that is the impact that we had here. Okay, so second example. So as I said, it doesn't always have to be a large-scale intervention or transformation within, let's say, an educational setting. We worked with functional leaders. So functional leaders where responsibilities and decision-making authority had gradually become unclear. And what we did is we worked with them, the subject matter experts. We organized some focus groups with them. And what we did is we mapped, again, all the different activities linked to their roles. based on those different activities, we made, as you can see here, a delegation diamond. Delegation diamond, it helps to make clear for example, certain kind of activities, who has a responsibility to execute that activity, who has the authority, and that's more on decision-making authority, because it can be possible that you have some certain responsibilities to do work, but you do not have the decision-making authority. So that's what we did here. And then again, also the accountability. And accountability is more, let's say, if a certain activity is not done or it's not executed, okay, who will they contact to see if yeah, that activity needs to be done within a certain time frame, for example. So that's what we did here. So we mapped all the different activities that are expected today as is in the role. Based on those different activities, we cleared out the responsibility, authority, and accountability. And what we did is we rewrote the job descriptions to create more clarity and alignment. So you can see here, it's not, let's say, whole change in job design, as you've seen in the first example. Here it's more about creating that role clarity. It's starting from the as is and making that more clear. And that is also something you can do. It's also a way of designing more motivation and workable work. Okay, so that's the top-down part of work design. We also have a bottom-up design. So what I say is that sometimes, okay, people are not just static. It's like you drop a job description for people and they just execute it. No, I think everyone in their job has some kind of autonomy to tweak certain things, certain tasks, certain work characteristics. And that is what bottom-up redesign is all about. So it's about employees proactively, so it's on the proactive initiative, shaping their tasks. So it's about the content of the job, but also how you can execute that job. So how you can execute those tasks, also the job characteristics, to create a better person job fit. So it's really to be more aligned with values, with interests, with needs. And that is what bottom-up redesign is about. And sometimes I like to make a parallel with what we do in or outside organizations, is that we see is personalization is everywhere. You can tweak your own Nikes. You can choose the color. You can choose anything you want. You can choose the color of your M&Ms. You can even change your license plate in what you want. So personalization really is everywhere. But I know when we talk about personalizing work, there's still some kind of hesitance and resistance to letting people personalize their work. And I think also the key point I would like to make is, okay, of course, I think the basis needs to be that the major part of your job needs to be designed well. And let's say 70% of good job design needs to be top down. But there are some possibilities I think we need to create for people also to personalize their work. And let's say that might be about 30%, to tweak it, to make it more personal, to let it be more fitting with the different needs, talents from people. And there are two pathways to do that, the bottom up. That can be done on a team level or individual level. So it's really about, as I said, the proactive behavior of individuals or teams to personalize work experience. Individual is more job crafting, and the team part is more co-work design or team crafting, as we call it. Important. So job crafting or co-work design, it's proactive, it's self-initiated, it's not decided top-down that you need to be proactive. And what we know also is that if we create jobs that have, let's say, the good quality of work, well, people become more proactive. So there's really an interplay between the two. It's about changing work, your tasks, and work characteristics, and it results in a more personalized work design. And I would like to make the link again with the job demand resources I presented in the beginning. So what is happening when you let people job craft or you let teams co-design their work is it has an impact, as we've seen, job resources, personal resources, tolerable work demands, they have an impact on work engagement. But people who are more engaged, they, as I said, become more proactive. So they start doing more job crafting. They start doing more crafting in teams. So it is a positive spiral that creates itself. And that is why it's important also to look at that proactive part and the work design top-down part, because both are equally important in work design. The different ways to craft or co-design, I made the link between, let's say, the job demands resources model and the SMART model. So relational resources, it's about the R, the R within the SMART framework. The structural resources is more about everything that has to do with the SMA, the stimulating work, mastery, and autonomy. The job demands, it's linked to the T, as I explained, so the tolerable parts. The well-being is more the personal resource, and then reframing is a little bit outside the framework because it's more about how you look at your job, how you cognitively perceive your job. So some people even, or some researchers don't even see it as a way to job craft or do on bottom-up work design because it's more cognitive. It's not really behavioral. And for example, increasing relational resources can be, for example, walking over to a colleague instead of sending an email. So it's really small actions people take. Yeah? It's not the big changes. It's really small actions you can take, as I said, to tweak your job, to just tweak your work design. Asking a colleague for feedback, scheduling, for example, regular check-in with team members. So that's the relational resources you can increase. Structural resources, as I said, is about the SMA. It's, for example, taking ownership on how you prioritize your workday. As I said, the autonomy, for example, you can increase by looking into your day and, okay, how do I want to plan my day ahead, for example, or learning new skills, or deliberately deciding where you do certain tasks. For example, if you have to do cognitive work, well, you might decide on doing it elsewhere than in a, let's say, a work environment where there's a lot of noise. So relational resources, structural resources, people increase them. Then we have the job demands, the hindering job demands, and that is more about optimizing them, because we know from research, for example, that decreasing job demands might be negative, because people tend to, if you decrease the job demands, tend to avoid work. So that's where, let's say, optimizing job demands is a more is a better way to tackle the job demands. And optimizing job demands, it's about simplifying or standardizing, for example, repetitive tasks. Might be a way to do that. Then we also have the challenging demands, as you remember, so the stimulating part in jobs. And that's more about taking extra task on top of your job. For example, volunteering for a project outside your usual responsibilities, about taking the lead in a meeting or initiative, or exploring new customer groups, stakeholder perspective. So it's really about the initiatives you take to create more challenges in your job. And then we have, let's say, the two others, a little bit less within the SMART framework, but it's about the well-being of personal resources. It's taking, for example, short recovery breaks between cognitively demanding jobs. That's more the well-being resources. And then the reframing, is, for example, looking into your task and looking at the bigger picture of what you do. It's more about that. Like, okay, I see the sense of purpose that my tasks are doing. So that's the different ways to craft. Okay. What is now an important way or a way also to do co-work design? What we do, for example, within Rewire is we also facilitate teams to help them, let's say, redesign their job. Most of the time, what we do, it's about clarifying and aligning on the different topics you see there. It's about the team goals, it's about the roles and responsibilities, it's about the collaboration, the team relationship, team dynamics. And the SMART is also included in this approach. So it really depends on what the needs are for the team. And what we do is we help them based on different exercises. Okay, clarify, for example, the team goals, and that creates more role clarity. Again, roles and responsibilities. Again, we can do some exercises to clarify. I give you the example from the school environment. Well, that's what we did there. We clarified roles and responsibilities. We clarified the as is. But you can also, let's say, do it in a more playful way, and that's, for example, a team canvas that people or teams can use to look into how their work is designed, how many resources they have, how many demands they have, and then also the actions they take to redesign it, to make it more tolerable, to make it more stimulating, etc. And I think there are different ways, as you've seen now, to redesign work, but I think the question is, do we always need to redesign work? I don't think so. So work design is a way, as I said, to create more well-being, to create, let's say, better performance, to make work more sustainable, people get more engaged, etc. But it's not always the answer to everything. And that's where I would like to finish with, let's say, before you just dive into the implementing part and starting redesigning whatever you want to redesign, is, yeah, I think the first part or the first thing that you need to do is analyze what is a problem we are trying to resolve. Is it a work design issue or not, or is it something else? Is it leadership? Is it really the organizational structure, or is it something else? So I think that's important to ask that as a first question, and then collect into different sources to get your information, appraise the quality of those different sources you get. It might be stakeholders, it might be data that you collect from the organization, it might be more, let's say, scientific research that you look into. But you collect all those different sources, you appraise the info, you aggregate all the info, and based on that, you make a decision on what's the right pathway to follow. So based on that, you decide on, okay, what's the actions we will take, and then you do the implementation. And work design can be a way of getting ahead or proceeding, but not always the answer. And then, of course, it's important to do a follow-up, evaluate, and improve. So that's, let's say, the dynamic circle that we need to follow just to be sure that we do the right things, and we continue to do the right things. And that is, I think, a structural way to approach or tackle issues or problems within organizations. Okay, so if there are some people who would like to dive a little bit deeper into work design, just know that together with Geert van Ottegem, who did the Beam talk more than a month ago, I think, we have a 3-day learning track really on work design, and that's where we really dive into the details of top-down redesign, bottom-up redesign, and also a little bit part on organization design, because Geert is really specialized in that. So that's what I wanted to share with you at the end. And then, okay, if you want to stay connected, you can find my contact details here for any questions or just to maybe let's say change ideas on work design.